You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Brian Rodgers.
Hello.
Brian, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
All right. Well, my name is Brian Rodgers, and I live here in Memphis, Tennessee. I work at the Amtrak train station downtown. That's what I do professionally.
And how boring does that get waiting for a train? Because I know you have to wait literally all day for one of those things.
Yeah, we have two shifts there with one train each shift. The morning shift starts real early, but the train gets there, and then after that, you wait. Your wait time's after the train, and then the night train, your wait time is before the train. So it's 6:45 a.m. 6:40 a.m. for the first train, and then 10:40 p.m. the second train. So, I mean, you keep busy. You have people coming and going, but with information and tickets, especially. We have a Hilton hotel that opened at the building now, so it keeps more people coming through, and a lot more activity in the building now.
Do you find that a lot more people are using the train just as kind of like just a new way of getting around, or do you feel like it's just the same kind of people that use the train every single day?
Well, you have your standard crowd that use it as their only mode of transportation, back and forth, up and down the line. We go between New Orleans and Chicago, but all the time there are new people riding as a new, just people that are going just to ride the train for fun, just to ride the train, and some use it for part of their vacation. So it's always changing.
I think the one thing I always found interesting about trains is that it can literally get any person to start pumping their arm to get the train whistle to go.
Yeah, and they'll do it too. They'll blow the horn. Some of those engineers, that you.
Some of my fondest memories, man, is those things freaking I'm driving down the road or something, you see a train and you just sit there banging your arm out the window trying to get them to honk. They always do it every
The
time.
engineers, man, they love that horn. I tell you what. Sometimes, they have to blow it at every crossing, and sometimes our station's surrounded by hotels and apartments. They're all used to the sound, but some of them will just do a little quick toot. They want to wake everybody up. Some of them will just lay on that horn. It's just up to the individual. I think there's a minimum amount of time you have to. You got to make sure people hear it, but you could tell when they enjoy it, though.
If I had to ask you what's one of your fondest things you love about your job, what would it be?
Wow. Actually, how it's different every day. Monotony just drives me crazy. So, a lot of times we'll print out like a manifest of how many people are getting off the train and whatever. But a lot of times, sometimes in the mornings, I don't even look. So it's a surprise when I get there if it's going to be, 150 people or if it's going to be 10 people. So I like to keep things different every day. And that right there, that job allows me to do that. It's never the same. It's never monotonous to me.
You probably have to worry about TSA for the train systems as well. Like how often do you come across someone trying to smuggle something or do something outrageous that could be like a terroristic attack? I mean, you got to think TSA gets insane when everybody thinks of TSA, they think of planes. But you know how easy it would be to smuggle something onto a train?
Well, we have our Amtrak police, TSA, BN police, the different railroads. All the railroads come by the station. They're all there all the time. There's a BN railroad officer that comes in, and he's about 7 feet tall, and he's got an enormous German Shepherd. And he'll come up and just stand there. And when you got a big guy with a big dog like that standing there, everybody just behaves like you couldn't even imagine. But the TSA will show up every once in a while. If you get someone demanding, acting crazy on the train or something, they'll call local law enforcement is all over the place too. So it's pretty well covered.
Do you ever have someone that goes crazy on the train? I feel like that's you want to talk about the people that go crazy on a city bus or something. I feel like a train is another good spot to just lose your shit.
Every now and then, it's mostly just folks who get a little intoxicated and get a little loud. and for the safety and enjoyment of the other passengers, you know, they'll be, how shall I say it delicately, removed at the next convenience
They'll be escorted out of the property. Yeah.
location. They'll stop the train and law enforcement will meet them there. That's how.
See, that's
Yeah.
one of the craziest systems of transportation when it comes to riding on a train, because you can drink alcohol on there. Like they have a thing when you're leaving, I think it's New Jersey, and you're riding the train track. You can literally, it's called the drunk train. It's at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and everyone that is sober basically dreads this ride because it is like, it's just terrible. You're getting like people yelling at you. It's like being on a subway late at night. You know, you get a bunch. You come into interactions with so many people from all over walks of life.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I haven't heard of that one, but
Now I had an experience I think it was like maybe a few years ago. I almost got hit by a train. Yeah, I almost got hit by a train. So what was happening was we were going by this graveyard. I was driving my car, and there are these train tracks. And usually when a train's coming by, the tracks drop, like the little signs drop down to stop you so you don't get hit by a train.
yes.
And what happened was the lights were out. Everything was broken on the signs, and I didn't know. So I'm driving and I can't see, like you can look left or right, depending on like, you know, where the train's coming from. You always can like kind of check. I usually do when I go over the train tracks. I always check to make sure there's nothing coming down the way. But I you couldn't do that because there was a graveyard right beside the train tracks. And
Okay.
but there was this graveyard to the right of it, so I couldn't see anything that was coming from the right. It was on like a hill, so you couldn't see anything as you're approaching the train tracks. You can't tell what's coming from the right. So as I'm getting on top of like going over the train tracks, I'm not slowing down. I'm like just going the regular speed limit. I get over, there's a fucking train that is coming already, like down thing. Like, I mean, it was a good probably 50 yards away, but still, that was so fucking close. I was like, holy, like I could have just died.
It wake you up. Yeah.
It definitely woke me up, man. It was early in the morning. I do a lot of my moving in the morning.
I bet you don't trust crossing arms now, do you?
I just try to stay away from train tracks, man, because I live in a beach town, so we don't have a whole lot of
Oh,
train
okay.
railroad crossings or anything. But if I get near one, I'm just like somebody's getting out of the car and they're gonna go up to it and look both ways. I just don't trust it, man. I mean, I've seen videos of people throwing stuff on tracks and trains just running it completely over. I've seen deer get hit. I've seen so many things happen. I'm like, that thing could wreck my
Mhm.
car in an instant, my little plastic car. I'm like, ugh.
That's definitely true. And that happens. Some people do it on purpose.
How
And
often do you get someone that gets killed on a train track?
well, there's vehicle strikes. Maybe it's a lot more often than you think. It's fairly common. Sometimes it's just people trying to beat the train. Sometimes people do it on purpose. Same thing with people on foot. It's trespassing, walking down the tracks. Sometimes they are there on purpose, and sometimes they just don't. They think they have plenty of time. Like that's a popular thing, is you never ever take a chance on the tracks. All the people that take photographs on the tracks, that senior pictures and stuff, those trains will come out of nowhere, and you can't hear them until they're on you. They don't always make a lot of noise, and what the railroad saying is, always expect a train anywhere at any time from any direction. That's why you look both ways when you cross a track. You always look both ways, even on foot. When you think you can't hear anything, you always look. Always. Never trust those crossing arms because they could always go out.
It's like a scene from Stand By Me. I know there's an old folklore of one of those cryptids, like Bigfooter type things, but it's near my kind of area, I guess you should say. It's a couple hours away. It's in Pennsylvania. They call it the Pope Licking Monster. And it's the only cryptid with a death count. And the reason why is it's home is on top of a mile-and-a-half bridge that is nothing but train tracks. So there's literally nowhere else to walk. It's just there's no side parts that you can easily walk and watch the train. It's all just meant for the train. And it's killed people because people go to try and find this monster. They go on the train tracks, and next thing you know, a train comes and they can't get off.
Wow, that's
It's
I haven't heard it. What is it called again?
the Pope licking monster. Like, the Pope, like the Catholic
Yeah.
Pope.
What?
I don't know how they got that name because he doesn't lick the Pope, so it doesn't make any sense. But
Sounds like Boss
to each
Man.
is their own. Yeah. Well, it's strange because I think what's really, really fascinating really about trains, and we touched on it before, the graffiti that is on
Mhm.
trains. I always found that to be fascinating works of art. Like, I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of the people at the railroads, they really keep that graffiti on there. I think it gives the train character.
Mhm. Some of the artwork is really, really good. It doesn't have a good look on an Amtrak train, but it really plays well on the freight trains. I like it too.
Now, when it comes to kind of really just riding the train in general, I feel like a lot of people are just dismissive of it because of how long it takes to really get anywhere on a train. It's more about enjoying it rather than getting there quickly.
If you get a good price, if you get it far enough ahead to where you have a good rate and everything, and there's not a lot of travel that day, you get it's it costs roughly about the same amount you would pay for gas to drive wherever you're going a lot of times. And the thing is, you get to sit back. You can nap. You can read a magazine. You can watch a movie on your phone. You can wander around the train. So that's the benefit to me. I like just being able to. When I go to New Orleans for training or something like that, I just sleep most of the way. Just it's extremely comfortable. It's so much less stressful than driving.
Now, from going from the trains to kind of doing what you do in your free time, where you do a little bit of, you want to explain it though, because it's a weird thing for a lot of people that don't know what it is.
Fossil hunting, actually.
Fossil hunting. Everybody's
Fossil
thinking you're
hunting.
collecting T-Rex bones and you're going to make your own Jurassic Park. So you got to explain this to me. What do you mean by fossil hunting?
All right. Well, anything. Well, our area where we live in West Tennessee here is predominantly Pleistocene or Ice Age. So all during the summer and some of the winter, we go out and let's see, our area is covered with a layer of about 300 to 100 foot thick. This formation is called LERS, LOESS, but it's just windblown rock dust that from the retreating glacier and the end of the ice age, it blew over here and just stacked up. So anything, once you drop off I don't know if you've ever heard of the Chickasaw Bluffs.
No, I haven't.
In Memphis, once you drop off, the Memphis is built on the bluff. So, excuse me, it drops off into the river. So everything from the west of us way over in Arkansas, this is floodplain from the Mississippi River. But when you get to the bluffs, that's all the stuff that's still intact. So you look for a creek that cuts perpendicular through that, deep enough to where it gets down to the good ice age stuff, like a nice blue-gray clay area where there was water flow before, back in the ice age, and just start picking stuff up, really.
When it comes to like just finding out all this information about, the ice age and all these types of things, how did this, like, is this just stuff that you learned in your travels? Like, how did you first even discover that there were even fossils in your area?
Well, I guess I was about 18 or 19, and I still have the skull over here too. I found in the little local creek here. We just used to wander through there. I don't even remember what we were looking for. We were just wandering around playing down there. But I found a goat skull, with horns and everything. Something about that, finding that skull just sitting there all perfect that used to be alive. Something, I don't know what it was about it, but it just kind of grabbed me.
Badass it looks. That's what it is. It's why any Texas steakhouse has a cow skull in there because it looks badass.
Yeah.
You put that on the front of your car and you're driving. Imagine putting that on a train on the front of it. Wonder how many things you scare off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it just fascinated me. So I still have that one over here, but now we still keep any modern bones we find. we'll keep those two and we'll put them in a separate container. That's just for comparative anatomy. If you find something from the Ice Age and you have no idea what it is, see because when I first started, this is before the internet, and to find out any kind of useful information about anything, you had to go to the library and navigate the Dewey Decimal System and just try to find any kind of vague reference to anything you find. But now
That fucking Dewey Decimal System, man. Holy
I never
shit.
really learned it. No.
I
Never
can't
got it.
believe you just dropped the Dewey Decimal System. That thing was the biggest pain in the ass. I thought I was going to need that in my everyday life, and I never use it to this day.
Look, I've got any of my kids will go with me. Like if I really push it and ask them to. But I have one of my kids really isn't into it. His major in college next year will be something in this venue. But he has learned in the last couple of years since his interest peaked in this stuff, he's learned more than I have in like the past 30 years because of the internet. And just if I had had the internet back then where you could sit in a creek and take a picture of something and then just search the internet for other pictures people posted and figure out what it is before you even leave the creek, that's amazing.
Yeah, books are becoming fossils now. See, what's interesting about your fossil hunting, it's a lot different from like you would see in my area, because a lot of people, what we find is fossils. A lot of people find megalodon teeth. A lot of people find um, things like seashells or sea glass, but they come from something like historic a little bit. You find a common arrowhead, people usually talk about it there in some certain native land or something. Someone will talk about that. What's one thing that you found that has completely just been one of your best finds?
Oh, wow. I really like the teeth. For some reason, I really like the teeth. But I have a mastodon tooth that I found, I guess, about 6 months ago. That's out here prominently displayed. That's hard for me to put my finger on something because I got right here in front of me. I have like a few rib fragments that I found, and when I clean them and soak them in this chemical mixture called boot bar, which soaks into the bone and strengthens it. It's basically like you're soaking the bone all the way to the core with like a plastic, so it preserves them. And then when they're done, they have this really pretty, what we call Ice Age orange tint to them, and they're just perfect. And I'll sit and look at any of them. I'll just sit here and look at these little rib pieces and things that just amaze me. But really, it's just the teeth. I mean, I like the mastodon tooth. I found a camel tooth, which, they've been extinct since the Ice Age era, and buffalo teeth, things like that. Camel tooth is one of my favorites, though, I think.
You said camel tooth?
A camel, yep.
So what is a camel doing? An Ice Age camel. What's that? Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Does it look anything similar to the camels that we have today, or is it like more of like a evolved version?
It was bigger. It looks a lot like a camel today, but it's just bigger. Yeah. That's what a lot of things from the Ice Age look like today's version, just bigger.
How do you come across these things though? Because like we're talking about, like you're looking through like rivers, you're looking through banks, and you're looking through all these things to try and find your fossils. How often, like, like how long does it take, the process of it? I feel like it has to take forever unless you have a really keen eye, like you're able to do a scavenger hunt well.
Well, anytime you go to the creek, you never come out completely empty-handed. You may just find one thing. Most of the times, I'll fill up I got a little bag about that little pouch that Indiana Jones carries in the movies. I have a pouch about that size, and I can fill it up halfway usually, at least, just when I go by myself down in there. And you get, because we get things like, it could be Native American artifacts, pottery, or arrowheads, or things like that, or bones, or just every once in a while I found like an old bottle or something like that. But you never come out empty-handed wherever you go, once you know what you're looking for.
How do you get these fossils though? Like you obviously have a process. What's your process of trying to even go? Like, how do you start your day if you're going to say, I'm going to go get fossils today? How do you plan it out? Take me step by step.
Okay. I have this walking stick that I made that has a trowel on one end for digging, and the stick itself is about 5 feet long, and then I have a a mesh scoop on the other end, so I don't have to get down close to the water if it's all mushy, too muddy down close. I can sift out some stuff, but mostly it's for a walking stick because I'm not as steady and well balanced as I used to be. So if I go without the stick, I'll fall down. But anyway, I take that in my pouch. Make sure you have plenty to drink, because once you climb down 30 feet into the creek, I don't really like going back and forth to the car. I'm down there until I'm done, then I'm gone. But that rock dust that I told you about earlier, it sits directly on top. If you're going to find a good layer, it's this bluish gray clay, and if you see wood debris in there, that means that's where there was a slow-moving creek or a swamp or something, which we find. Like I have right here in front of me, I have a nice age pine cone. I soaked it in the stuff for about a week, and wood debris, like if you try to preserve a stick or pine cone, something like that, they're very difficult. It takes a long time, and it's just very time consuming. But I have pecans and walnuts and things. They look just like something you picked up out of the yard today.
I feel like if you're trying to pull out like a fossil or something out of, especially like this type of clay you're talking about, it's got to be extremely difficult to make sure you don't break anything too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many times like I'll try and grab like a shell or something that's jammed in between a rock on the beach or something, and it ends up breaking and ruining the whole shell. Like, how careful do you have to be just trying to extract a fossil out of just clay in general? I mean, that's not something easy that you're going to be able to do your first time.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, probably 95% of our fossils are found after they're washed out. When you were looking through these creeks, because wherever they were deposited, it was in water. It could have been moving. So it's just like a modern creek. You may find a deer bones and things like that in it. Well, this stuff was deposited in that creek in the Ice Age. So now this new creek is washing through, eating these things out of their layer. So they'll put these erosion control rocks, these big limestone boulders and stuff they'll drop down in the creek, to stop the creek when it gets full from eating out from under a bridge, say. So those rocks, they're kind of a mixed blessing. They're covering things up somewhat on the bottom, but they also act as a huge net. So all winter long, and this goes for the Mississippi River as well, all winter long, this creek is washing these things out from way upstream, and every rock surface comes across it, every bridge, these rocks act as a net. So once you know how hydrodynamics work, you can tell where the water is going to drop things when it's high. And then that trowel into my stick I use for flipping rocks over, especially during the summer, so you don't grab a snake under there. But you flip these rocks over where the water should drop stuff, and a lot of times it drops it right there. So yeah, the rocks cover things up somewhat, but they're catching fossils for you too. So we do have one good find that we did last year. My son found the lower jaw of an Ice Age beaver. It's enormous. That came out of the
jaw of an Ice Age beaver. Hold on a second. You can't just keep rolling on with that. You got to explain that to me. I mean, first of all, we talk about your fascination with fossils, and then getting him into his fascination kind of with it as well, and then coming across so many different things and having the internet as well to be able to look it up. How crazy is that? That that's got to be a good moment for you when he discovers something. It's like you discover something.
Oh yeah. If you take a friend out to your creek, you break down and you relent and take a friend out, and they find something good. It's like it's more annoying, but when your son finds it, it's still in the family. So it's in his own display and everything. So it's all still with me, kind of. But no, I was very proud of him. Very excited when he found it, because very rarely do we get a chance to remove something directly from the matrix, right from the deposit itself. So, we took our time. We went back over a period of 2 days and got all of it out. All that was there. But so in that creek, whenever that beaver died, it washed until it just found a place because of the hydrodynamics of that creek at that time. It dropped somewhere. So he found the lower jaw, the incisors, and then parts of the upper palate. And these beavers were, I don't know what their weight was, but these things were, 8 feet long and they were just enormous.
Yeah, there's this thing. I used to do a version of this podcast, but it used to be a lot smaller and do specific topics. And my buddy's interested in a lot of archaeology type stuff, so I looked up. It was the not medical, but the more scientific term for the giant sloth, which was one of the versions known as the megatherium. And we talked about it, and it was so fascinating to figure out these sloths, these little things that we can put basically as a backpack just around us today. They used to be the size of like buses. Like
Yeah.
they used to they had claws on the bottom of their feet. They used to dig holes, and literally they were meant for trees. But what they would do is, if they couldn't reach the top of a tree and they couldn't grab it with their arm and pull the branch down, they would dig up the root of the tree and then have the tree fall down, and then they would pick the fruit off of it. And they used to make tunnel systems, much like a tunnel for a subway or a train system or something. They used to tunnel into the ground. And I was like, imagine if
Wow.
we had these things like that today. We would be riding around, instead of using the train, we'd be riding around on these giant megatheriums.
You wouldn't get there very fast, but yeah.
Dude, I would have a much more better time riding a megatherium than I think of driving my car.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
would
Well,
tunneling
everybody.
everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find that with fossil hunting, you have more of a passion, like for just learning a lot about the stuff you're discovering? I feel like once you find something and you look
Yeah.
it up, it really gets you interested in just archaeology in general.
Definitely. It's hard at first because you got your eye. You start out with fossils, but you're also during the wintertime when the water's up in some of our creeks. We look. The limestone rocks that I was talking about before. That limestone a lot of it comes from East Tennessee. Then they bring it over here and they use it for erosion control. So we go out. We have out by the Mississippi River, out where I live out here in north of Memphis. There are just vast tracts of these rocks they put out along the sides of these roads out by the river, keep it from washing away when it comes up out of its banks. Well, these rocks contain fossils too. So that's usually our wintertime fossils. We get our limestone rocks out, and we get just those little engravers. You can get it at Home Depot or Lowe's. It's a little engraver, but basically what it is a little tiny jackhammer, and you buy the tips, and you can just like put your bright light on your desk, and like I got them spread on my desk right now. But you find interesting shells or things on there, or different trilobite snails. I like the snails. So like you get these things and you grind and you knock out the rock surrounding it, and you take your time. That's our wintertime work usually.
How often, when you're trying to knock off the rest of the stone to get the fossil or get the shell extract out, how often do you break the actual fossil or shell? I feel like it would happen a lot.
Yeah, too often.
My grandpa tried to teach me how to nail in a fence post, and I hit my thumb every time with the hammer. So I'm just trying to think of it in a way like, imagine trying to extract a perfectly like a very sensitive fossil still, even though it's lasted so long, it's been preserved. But imagine trying to hit it with a hammer and then breaking it. Like, what do? Do you just super glue it together?
Oh yeah. If the piece doesn't fly up across the room, you can put it back together. And it depends on what you're gonna do with it when you're finished. If you were already gonna preserve it or put some stuff on the outside, it's hard to tell the crack, but sometimes you can still tell. But it's annoying. With these little engravers, they have a certain noise. It's not quiet, but it goes. And if you get distracted, start getting ahead of yourself, and you lose you're kind of like lost in your thoughts while you're doing it, it'll start making this binding up noise if you're pushing too hard, because really you just set the tip on the piece of rock that you want, and the vibration, let it work for a few seconds, and it'll just come flying off. But see, around every fossil in rock, it's not really attached to the rock. There's a microscopic layer, I don't know what it's called, but the fossil is actually just sitting there encased tightly in the rock, but it's not attached to it. It's not part of the rock. So at some point, it will actually just pop out. And there may have a couple little tiny little fragments still stuck on it or whatever, but that's what makes it possible, that they're not really attached. I wish I knew the name of that, but I don't.
And you've learned a lot of this through trial and error.
Yes.
Just your own self kind of information as well. Like, I mean, when you're coming across things and you're trying to go out for the process of like the way you were describing, looking at different like rock kind of variations, like from limestone, being able to tell if something might be in there. Do you have any hints, like anything that you've learned that like, oh, well, this rock usually carries something in it? Or is it just because how many times you just go into something and you don't know what's going to be behind it? You never know until you find it. You could spend all day looking and never come back with anything. But like, are there subtle tells? Are there subtle like you're hitting something and next thing you know you realize there's nothing in here, it's just hollow? Or is like I feel like it's like digging, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. Well, and I don't mean to sound dodgy, but it's really a great deal of it is intuition. Like my son he likes the minerals too. I don't like I'm not real big into minerals. I just like the fossils and the Native American artifacts. But he can pick up a rock that looks a certain way and know that something's going to be in it. And 9 times out of 10, he'll break it open and there's crystals in it, like a geode. I don't know how he does it, but a lot of it's just trial and error. And what I've learned also is that the more you go out and do it, you can spot, for instance, like sticks in the water that are turned dark black or brown or dark brown or whatever. They'll sit there. A lot of times they'll look like a bone sticking out of the rock. But eventually you get to where you can tell just by looking at it without even having to bend over that it's wood and not a bone, just from the way it looks. And part of that, like I said, is intuition. And just part of it's just having done it so many times and getting tired of bending over for nothing. And it's like you just learn to see. And there are a lot of things that want to be. This is what we say all the time, just to entertain ourselves. But you'll see a stick or a leaf, and say that stick really wanted to be a bone because sometimes it's really convincing. Or the end of a hairbrush really got me 2 or 3 times till I got aggravated with it and threw it up in the woods. But it's really an intuitional thing, I think.
I can understand that for sure. I mean, how many times you can talk to any type of person that does a form of art, whether it's a painting, whether it's creating a song, whether it's making a movie, whether it's doing any of this type of stuff. They get when something doesn't when a slip up happens or something, a mistake happens, it ruins the whole thing. It's okay to get upset about too, and you got to have patience, especially when you're hunting fossils, because it's not you don't know it's going to be there. You're just out there looking, and hopefully you come across something. I mean, how many times do you go out there looking and never find anything?
Very rarely, actually.
Really? You guys have a lot of stuff down there?
Yeah. Because when I go, okay, we've got to the point where now on this one creek that we go to, that's our favorite creek. One bridge is mine and one bridge is his. So if he's not with me, I won't go to his bridge because that's like his territory. So when I come down 30 feet into the creek, you start out right there. All these rocks, these are limestone rocks. So you can find fossils in the rocks themselves, fossils that are dropped out of the ice age. In between the rocks, you go out to the end of these rocks that they put out, and it always creates a very fairly large silt bar, just of silt and fine gravel. And you go to that, you put your back downstream and start digging into this silt, and you find teeth and things there. It's just, and then you got the matrix itself where the things are coming out of the wall. So there's always ice age material sticking out of the wall. If you want to go collect some acorns or pecans or snails too, there's snail shells. They're very fragile. You get them out and soak them in the water, and you got to protect them. But there's always multiple options there every time you go. So you're going to find something.
Now, if you had to say one thing that you were going to come across that you really hope to discover, what would it be? Like, I mean, for me, if I was going to be fossil hunting, I'd want to find something that would get my name in a textbook or something that would be like, this is the rarest dinosaur I've ever seen. This is an Australopaleo, and like 50 other syllables long. It's got to have that exotic name to it.
Yeah. Well, as far as things here goes, I want to find saber-tooth skull or saber-tooth, or even just the canine of a saber-tooth, because those are they're extremely rare anywhere, really. But I don't think we found any here in this area. But worldwide overall, of course, I'd like to find, a T-Rex skull or teeth.
Have you ever wondered why a lot of those fossils are pretty rare? I feel like maybe back in the day when these things were alive and roaming the earth, I feel like there was the reason why they don't find a lot of a certain fossil or a lot of a certain species is because maybe there wasn't that many on the earth when they died out.
Yeah, well, they I don't know. I'm not sure. Still not sure what I think about that because they'll say that 90% of everything that's ever lived on the earth isn't represented in the fossil record. But I don't know. I find a lot of they got massive bone beds, of course, and mass burials. But I don't know. I'm not too sure about that really because I know it's difficult. You have to be in the right spot to be preserved. But see, you have places like the Mississippi River because I used to have one of the curators at the Pink Palace Museum here in Memphis he was really instrumental in keeping me motivated and helping me learn a lot of this stuff. But he told me once that if you bone in the Mississippi River, the river goes through like every state north of here, so it's so heavily mineralized. He said you could drop a bone in there, just a regular bone, and it could fossilize and look 10,000 years old in just a year, which always fascinated me.
Now, you said he kept you motivated. Is that just because we were talking about before how like it does get a little bit dis kind of earning when you can't find anything, or if you just kind of break something or mess up? Like, is that how they kept you motivated?
No, he would just mess with me to keep me motivated. I would bring something in that I thought was just great, and as a big mystery, and he'd say, "Oh, that's this. What else you got?" Well, that's it today. He goes, "Go find me something good." He keep sending me back out, because he was always identifying things for. He was my internet really, and I'd collect up a bunch of stuff and take it in. And if you go down to the area of like Frankstown or around Tupelo, Mississippi, there's Cretaceous deposits there. So it's the time, the last age of the dinosaurs. It was a seashore right there. So you can find shark's teeth down there too, but it's like where you're talking about the megalodon teeth, those are ice age and slightly
Yeah,
before.
see,
But
I didn't know anything about those. I thought those were like the rarest thing in the world. And then some guy was explaining to me when he goes and looks the beach for fossils or shells or something, he says you find those pretty common just because how many sharks were out there at the time when they all kind of whatever when they lost their teeth and how many teeth a shark actually has. They go, it's actually a lot more common than you would think. Like
mhm.
compared to the average person that just decides to go fossil hunting one day, pulls out a shark tooth or something and immediately goes, I just found a historic artifact. And then you go to some dude that actually goes and hunts artifacts. He's like, yeah, it's not that common, man. We get those all the time. I got a trash bag filled over there. You're like, what?
Yeah, and the guy with the trash bag, he never gets tired of picking those up, and he won't just leave them. He's not going to leave them now. They still pick them up because it don't matter how many you find or how common it is, you still pick them up. I had somebody ask me one time, literally asked me, "Do you have to keep every fossil you find?" This was an ex-wife, actually, by the way. "Do you have to keep every fossil you find?" And I just looked at her like she was crazy. Well, of course I do. What do
You
you,
can
what do you
take
think
my
I'm going to do?
recliner, but don't you dare take my fossils, damn it.
Yeah. What kind of question is that?
See, the most I've ever done when it comes to just searching the beach or doing anything to find like a shell or a fossil, I mean, this is an inspiration like kids have at a young age. We have this fascination for just things that look appealing to our eyes. Like as people, we do too. I think this is one of the like kind of hobbies I want to see a lot more people trying to do. Like go on the beach with a metal detector. Go explore and try and find fossils because I mean, it's truly amazing when you just like I remember so many memories of just going climbing on top of these giant rocks by the ocean. I mean, dangerous to the point where like someone sees you like, "Oh my God, you're going to kill yourself." And you're just like, "No, I'm just looking for fossils." And
Hmm.
I'm looking through these rocks. I don't know how many times I like would jump down and try and reach into these rocks. Even I got pinched by a crab one time, man. And because the shell just looks so amazing. I pulled out a
Mhm.
giant conch shell that only had a piece of it chipped off, and I mean, they always say, "Can you hear the ocean?" I'm like, I don't know, but when it comes to items holding a memory, I believe that like when when it comes to a conch, when it comes to these types of shells, I believe that it's been so influenced by its environment so much that when they say, "Oh, you can hear the ocean in the conch," is it the ocean or is it like a memory of the ocean? You know what I mean? Like when you're
Mhm.
picking up
Yeah.
these fossils while you're digging, you literally are holding history in your hands. So how many times do you feel like you can read or you can feel what that fossil has went through?
Actually, it's a lot. And a lot of times when you find something, like with me, like when I found the mastodon tooth, when I won't pick it up immediately. I will let it. I have to sit down. It's like, okay, this is a good time for a break. I'll sit there beside it on a rock, get my water out, and just kind of savor the moment before I even touch it. I might take a picture of it. I might take a video of it. But when I found the mastodon tooth, I looked up about 10 feet away, and there was a Pleistocene horse jaw just leaning up against the rock where the water had just dropped it perfectly. It was just clean and dry, just sitting on the rock, leaning up against it, ready for me to just go pick up. So I sat there for a while, but it's kind of like you're just savoring the moment, whether it's respect or, part of it's respect and part of it is just absolute awe. Because, like you said, you know, everybody freaks out over, re-engineering dinosaurs, but if you think about, if you went to the zoo and they reintroduced a woolly mammoth standing there with the elephants in the zoo, your brain, or a saber-toothed cat, so you go to the cat area, where you got the lions in one cage and the cheetahs, then you go to the saber-toothed cat, how difficult it would be for your brain to just absorb what you're looking at. You don't
I
even have
think
to go to dinosaurs.
when a lot of people try and create this idea of Jurassic Park, or we see these things like Jurassic World movie that came out, and all they wanted, oh, I want to create dinosaurs again. I want to look at these things. It's like there's a reason why they died and why we're alive today. Um, we probably something would go wrong like the movie does, and next thing you know, dinosaurs would break out and start killing people.
Now you
There's a
sound like
thing
Jeff
that
Goldblum's
happened.
character.
Yeah. Well, there was a thing that happened in 2019 when it was just becoming 2019. And they created this park in Russia where they were recreating woolly mammoths based on extracting the DNA from like glaciers and stuff, like from, frozen woolly mammoths. And they were
Hmm.
recreating it using its DNA. And it was leading to the whole factor of recreating dinosaurs. And finally, I'm pretty sure at the ending of 2019, they actually had a few kind of distinguishable DNA characteristics that they could use to implement into like other animals to bring back dinosaur like features. And I'm like, man, how far are we down the line to the point where someone's going to recreate a fucking saber-toothed tiger and just start having it as a pet, like an emotional support saber-toothed tiger?
I think they could do it now, honestly. I don't
But
know
I'm like,
why, what's holding
with
them back, but
emotional support or any service type dog ability on a saber-tooth tiger, what is it providing? Oh, it helps with my anxiety. What? It's giving me anxiety, you having a fucking prehistoric cat in here.
yeah, that you can get a mini horse, those little ponies as a comfort as a guide animal, and take it everywhere with you. You can take it on the train.
Dude, I've Googled what animals I can use, and the one I want to get is either a lemur or a sloth. I don't know what it's
That's
going to
what I
provide
said.
ability, but you know, it's going to do so. I would love a service sloth that was a service sloth. Somebody please patent that service sloth. They have a
Yeah, see, that would
wrench
be
and
amazing.
construction mat. That would be, he would help you look for fossils. He wouldn't be
Hmm.
that good, but he would help.
Yeah, if he got off the leash, he wouldn't be hard to catch.
Ex- Yeah, just kick him. I wouldn't kick him. No, don't kick your service sloth. Take that back out. I just gave people a bad idea to start hurting service sloths.
Yeah, this could be all your faults on your head.
Well, I mean, like just like what we were talking about before, where you were naming off like, oh, this isn't that, this is this, and you were saying that the distinctive characteristics and details of a certain fossil. That's
Mhm.
information that you've soaked up just through your own basic learning. I mean, that's nothing a school has ever taught you.
Right, right.
I feel like with so much about just fossils in general and just the art of trying to find something, what tips do you have for people that are maybe trying to get into this? Like, I mean, so many people out there, like, it's like winning the Powerball, one in a million.
Well, it depends on where you are. The first thing you can do is get on the internet and find your location on a geologic map. You can download them. You can look at them anywhere online, but you just look at the geologic map, and it's color coded, and you just click on your area where you are, and we'll tell you the age of the rock and whether the most exposure. It tells you the bedrock exposure, so it'll tell you whether it's fossiliferous or not. Not everywhere has fossils. You may have to go somewhere to get to them. Like along the coast, in your area, last summer we went to Tampa, which is the same age, and we found, I didn't find any megalodon teeth. I found a couple of scrap pieces, little broken shards and things, but I brought back 50 pounds worth of bone out of the Peace River. And it just messes my mind up when I lay them out and try to figure out, look at them. It's just so much. It's overwhelming. But you just have to know your area. Your area is going to be dominated by one type or one age usually. If you're lucky, you have several ages within your reach. You can go here and there, but start with the age, so you know what you're looking for. And then if it's on the surface, you're good. But if it's a little bit below the surface, you find you just a little creek, just depending on how deep you need to be, and go from there, because you know what you're looking for. And the internet's just great with this stuff. My son has learned more in the past 2 years than I learned the previous 30 by, books and the Dewey Decimal System and all that horrible stuff.
Do you have any types of places in the future that you want to go to, or you want to try and search for fossils, like a area high in something that you've always found fascinating?
Yeah, the Hell Creek Formation out west. It's Cretaceous.
Now, when we say Cretaceous, we're saying like that's water creatures, right? That's more like
Well,
crabs.
Cretaceous is the last. It's the dinosaur age. It's
Okay.
Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. Cretaceous is really, a lot of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park were Cretaceous, not Jurassic, but some were like T-Rex and things like that. But they do these tours out west in the Hell Creek Formation where you can go, and you go with them out in the field for a week in tents and everything. And you keep, unless you find something super spectacular, which they're going to keep, you take home what you find. And people always find the T-Rex teeth are just amazing things. They've discovered somebody discovered a Triceratops last year on one of those things. You just pay them, and they cover your room and board and everything. And that's one of my goals, is to go do that.
Now, is there, when it comes to just finding anything out, like, what's the difference between the Cretaceous period and the Jurassic period? Is it just the dinosaurs that were there at the time, or
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it a more adapted version? Like, you saying that, like, to me is news. I just figured out that the Jurassic Park movies lied to me.
Well, there were these animals they call mammal-like reptiles that were alive in the Permian and before the dinosaurs. When you buy a bag of dinosaurs as a kid, the plastic dinosaurs, you'll see it's all mixed up. So that Dimetrodon, you know what that is? The big lizard looks like a monitor lizard, but they got that big sail on his back. That's actually pre-dinosaur, but it's a popular one. They put in the bag with their other dinosaurs. So yeah, so you do have different versions. Like you have earlier versions of T-Rex, that I would consider like Megalosaurus and Allosaurus and Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurus is the last and the biggest. So in my mind, it kind of flows like that. Things get bigger. You got a lot of sauropods in the Jurassic, and then all these meat eaters in the Cretaceous with every age had its meat eaters, but you got your Triceratops in the Cretaceous, herds and herds and herds, and duck-billed dinosaurs, and then you get all your predators coming after them. But it's just a different set from the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous.
I feel like you're going to find more carnivores or no, you're going to find more omnivores or herbivores fossils in general rather than finding carnivore fossils, because it
Yeah.
seems like those are more the prey. Those are the more the things that were easily killable, to where the point is you would find more of their bones everywhere. Seems like the harder ones to kill would be the ones you'd find less likely of their bones, is probably why they're more rare.
Yeah, there's always more food available. There's always more food than there is to thing that eats the food. So there's always more Triceratops than T-Rex.
How often do you go into a museum and just look at all the stuff in there where people are like, "Oh my God, look at that awesome statue," and you're just like, "I could find that shit."
Yeah, a lot of it we find, and we have a membership to our museum here, and we'll go in, and every time we go in, it's like we've learned more in the field since the last time we were there. And you're like, "Oh, look, that's where that is." Or you may think we'll find stuff in our creek that's washed from somewhere else sometimes, and we're trying to figure out why is this different than the Ice Age stuff we're finding, because we do find. I got a handful of things I found up there that are. See, our Ice Age bones are still bone. They're not turned to rock, but they have a certain look to them. And for some reason in the Ice Age, at least in this area, there was a lot of iron oxide. I don't know why. I haven't figured that out yet, but that's what gives it that Pleistocene orange color. So, because you can tell when a fossil comes out of that layer, it may have little bits and pieces of this hard, orangish kind of like sandy stuff stuck on it, so you know exactly where it came from. That's always a good indication of the age of the thing. That most definitely. But these are all still bone, though. They're just, you may have some that are kind of mineralized, a little bit heavy, but they're still bone. The things out west, the dumpsters are all rock.
Well, when you start doing this stuff and you start gathering all this personal information, the stuff that you're doing your own research behind, you're looking up the fossils, you're trying to figure out the best ways to get them, you're doing all these types of things, and you go into a museum, it's like someone's pulling back the curtain on something, where a lot of people don't know how easy it might be to find a fossil. We all think it's extremely difficult. That's why when we go to a museum, we're all, look at all these fascinating fossils, when really, if you're around it every day, it probably becomes very normal.
Yeah, well, you hear people just in awe and everything when they go through the kids and stuff, and you're like, you ought to see what we have at the house. So we go there just to kind of fill in gaps of information that in between our trips that we've learned.
With how you've kind of been influencing, like, your son or your grandson and everything like that, how do you kind of come across them when they get older? Do you think that they're going to be interested in doing any types of stuff like this, maybe diving into that field? I feel like if you since you've experienced or shown them this at a young age, it might give them a passion or drive for it later down the road, where they might turn that into a career.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm hoping that my one son stays with it, but I'm not going to push him in that direction if he wants to go another direction. But right now, his plan is still in that venue: anthropology, archaeology, paleontology, something like that. So he's still there, and I've taken them all out. Okay, you know how your kids don't like your music a lot of times and everything, but eventually, when you're playing your music all the time, eventually at some point in their life, they're going to hear a song on the radio used to play, and it's like, oh, and you're going to find. I tell them all, at one point you're going to like this song. It's going to come back, and you're going to like it. So I'm kind of hope that haven't forced them to go out when they were younger, with the fossils and stuff all the time, that maybe that'll happen too at some point. My one of my older boys will reach down and pick up a fossil, go, oh wow, and actually be interested in it without me forcing them to go out.
Yeah, it probably helps at a young age too, when they're little and they're beginning to learn how to read. You just start throwing a dinosaur book their way, like, we're not reading Dr. Seuss. We're gonna read about some paleosaurs and some other stegosaurus type creatures. And they're like, what? Like, yeah, we can find this. So whenever you get done reading chapter 2, let's go out and try and find one.
Yep. That's what we have in the car. We got a good little mixture in the car, dinosaurs, and also with the little kids. If you get those books, those big books with the big bright pictures of, say, like, some people might call them scary looking animals, just big, vivid colored praying mantises and things that just grab their attention. That's what got me when I was a kid too. So I keep those back there. I've always kept lots of pictures and things like that in the books, in the car for the kids as they've grown up. Anything to spark their imagination towards something like that.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate you coming out and finally getting onto the podcast. I know
Yeah.
we had some mishaps before, but I'm glad we were able to do it. Can you actually, I want you to give you here a minute at the end to kind of promote your Instagram page too, so people can find your awesome fossils that you put up and all the things that you've discovered.
Okay, it's called petrified_past. No special spelling or anything, just like it sounds. Petrified_past. PAST.
And I'll make sure I link that in the description so everybody can follow it too. Do you have anything to say to anybody out there that is wanting to know more about fossils or maybe just bored and wanting to find a new hobby?
Yeah, get out and keep looking down. And if you see something that looks interesting, if it's in the mud or if it's dirt, throw it in your bag, take it home, clean it up, look at it, get you a bright desk lamp, as many lumens as you can, hold it under there and look closely and just look it up. There's lots of resources online. Look it up and see. It may be something. You just never know. If your intuition says pick something up, pick it up, put it in your bag. You can throw it away later if it's nothing, Just always keep looking down and keep picking things up.
You could find an arrowhead, you could find a megalodon tooth, or hell, you could find a musket from the Civil War. It all depends on where you're looking.
That's exactly right.
Area. Thanks so much, Brian, for being on this episode of Out of the Blank, and stay tuned for our next episode.